By the way, can you point to where the recordings are stored? Because someone was asking me, and
Oh, really? Okay. So let me just show you what one thing I've been doing is I've been actually attaching the recordings as part of, let me show it to you. So usually the recording should, I get the mail after the call. After a couple of hours, I get the mail saying that here's the recording. So what I usually do is I attach it in the context of the meetings that we have. For example, today is this meeting. In the past, last
Mm.
meeting that we had, I usually attach it if there's anything important. Yeah, see here's the meeting recording, right? So for all the corresponding meeting notes, you'll see the corresponding meeting recording as well attached here.
Can you put that link in the chat
Last
real
meeting.
quick? No,
Uh,
yeah, this one, current meeting. Yeah, the last meeting.
okay, all right. I'll do it. Here
Thank
we
you.
go. Yeah. Uh, Yeah, so Prashant, feel free to send this. In fact, in some cases, I've also added some information where at which point the demo had happened, right? So that you can quickly check that part.
okay.
Okay, so today's meeting, checkout findings. Yeah, so this was an action item. Basically, I'm trying to check whether we can get checkout integrated. We have one person who is looking forward to getting this integrated, but
Ah,
so we have one contributor who's looking forward, but he hasn't started as yet. So
okay.
I'm hoping we can engage him in this call as well in the future. So I'm trying hard there.
Sure.
Uh,
Rao, for
this
information,
Yeah.
in ONAP TSC, ask the LFIT team
Hmm.
to look at the IAC scanning
Okay.
because ONAP is on the LFN and nephew is on the LFN. So
Hmm.
if they can have a pipeline, you put the check off, yeah, but they are look. I asked them to Jessica and then some other people
Hmm.
if they have some common the governance for this. It could be great. So I'll this coming Thursday, I'm going to ask them again what's the progress. Anyway, meanwhile, if you find the person, you can start. And then at the ONAP SECOM, we discussed about this checkup too. And I think you have fine. We're not doing actually, but we simply ask LFIT if they have some resource and then plan
Hmm.
for LFN, and everybody on the LFN probably take share of the. But we'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, one thing I was not able to get information about till date was that like CNCF has a bunch of tools. Like if you go to CNCF project tools, right? Like tools,
Mhm,
you'll see some tools that are offered by CNCF out of the box. Like
mhm, mhm.
uh, where is it? There are a set of tools that are available, including Sneak and things like that. I wanted to check if there's anything specific there that LF also provides, but I haven't got any response there. Maybe this is
Okay.
something that I should need to follow up with Sandra as well. But point well
Yeah.
taken. That would be really awesome to actually know if there's anything specific and what was the strategy towards this from
Yeah.
ONAPSECOM. Yeah.
I plan to uh, so they are LFIT, they're working for LFN
Okay.
entire. So I'm gonna send email to them, what's the progress and any other tool. And we are look at the check off, but we'll see. But and also check off integration with the GitHub action or some other action. And then maybe we have some. I want to they are migrating to GitHub action now. So we'll
Okay.
see how it goes.
Awesome.
Okay, I'll let you
Awesome.
know. Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Appreciate. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
So let's move on to the next action item here, right? Like, so Prashant, last time when we discussed, we talked about having Kubernetes resources for vault policies such that it can be automated, right? Like, is there any update on towards that? And maybe you might want to give some background, what we discussing. Yeah.
So last time I showed that we were using Vault outside of Kubernetes, outside of management any cluster, like as a separate service, and then like, but because of that, it wasn't a proper integration what we were implementing with secrets management. So we decided that we need to, like, we can use Vault within the management cluster, like deploy it as a Kubernetes service, so that then there is proper integration with all the Vault CIDs and all that. so we don't have to do much work on the vault side because everything is given already by different organizations. For example, the Red Hat config operator uh, does some good like automates most of the things in on the vault side, and we already have our identity with Spire in place. So
Right.
I'm working towards that. You can expect a demo next week.
Okay, fantastic. Hey, so I just want to clarify here to the team that, till now, the previous demos that we have been looking at, the vault was separately hosted outside of the management cluster. So
Yes,
they,
yes.
yeah, so that's what Prashant is saying, that we intend to actually deploy Vault as part of the management cluster. Is that a good approach? The it allows in much more flexible. So we are talking about keeping the secrets which are shared between management cluster, workload cluster, and within the Nefio ecosystem itself, right? Like here, it's a fair assumption to make.
Yeah. What is the footprint that you need for a vault?
So Vault is very lightweight. Like, I have in my previous deployments, even if you have half vCPU and the storage space is also not much. So if you have any, obviously there is storage required, persistent storage that would be required, but the requirement is very low. So the footprint is very less. Like, I've deployed it on apart on a single node cluster, which had simply 4 vCPUs. But Vault, we can check up exactly what the resources would be required.
Yeah,
Would that
because we
be
need the
important?
reason I'm saying is
Hmm.
because we need to put it as part of um, the installation, right? So we have
Yeah.
to, that's why I'm asking if you do so.
Okay. Prashant, would you be able to provide these numbers next time when we discuss?
Like resource usage and storage.
Yeah, yeah. So Vault itself will have this information online, like what kind of resource
Yeah, yeah.
expectation, resource usage we can have. Yeah, yeah. But it would
Okay,
be
I'll
better
I'll
to,
put
yeah,
it up in the chat once I like confirm it
yeah.
on the Slack. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other point? I wanted to bring up one more point for discussion here. And so, is there any other thing, Prashant, from your side?
Nope, all good.
Hey, so I wanted to discuss about the architecture. I was thinking about this. So, is this the model that we are looking at? So, we have, and this is where I want to make sure that we are on the same page. Uh, like we have Nefio catalog packages. My understanding is that the workload package will be present here. This workload package will have information about identity. What it essentially means that these are identity resources for this particular workload package, which means this will be Kubernetes resources saying that this workload needs this particular identity. And apart from that, it will specify the selector or the attestation mechanisms as part of this identity resources. And when this workload actually gets deployed, this workload is going to attest to this particular identity given the specific selector options, the identity attestation mechanism attributes that are mentioned as part of this resource. The second aspect is the authorization rules that are required. Once this identity is in place, this workload will need to have authorization rules. For example, vault policies, right? Like those can be specified as part of this authorization rule. Is our understanding in sync here? So this is what the model will be, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's it. The one question I have still,
Hmm.
but it's maybe just clarification question is the fact any visibility on that data, is that a concern?
Oh, no, no, it's not. Because
Yeah.
in this identity, what will be specified is that the SPIFFE ID of this particular workload package and the attestation parameters. What it means is that when the workload starts executing, that workload needs to have a mechanism to attest that. But apart from this workload, no one else would be able to attest to those parameters. So even if it is out there visible out to the external world, it's not a risk.
Yeah, correct. It's just that the visibility is there that people might see to what
Yes,
parameters it will attest
yes,
to.
yes.
But that security, let's say the bad guy or the bad person or bad X
Yeah.
will probably be much more focused around finding those parameters than otherwise.
Yeah, so in general, security by obscurity is a problem, right? Like so we have been banking upon that if an attacker somehow manages to know the attributes, then they can, and if they manages to then spoof those attributes, spoof that attestation, then we anyways have a problem. So maybe this is something that we can check, but essentially this package will put it out there in open. Yes, you're right. Uh,
That's the only
ah,
thing that I was going to say is
hmm,
that that's the only, yeah, I what
got
thing
it.
that is here that we have to be aware about, right?
Would it be a problem to put the attestation attributes out there in public? Attestation attributes out there in public. Uh, yeah, this is a good question. Okay. Uh, but in general, from the model perspective, this is the model that we have been talking about, right? Like, because in the last call or last to last call, we have been talking about, so this part I understand. What I don't understand, Wim, is this particular part, right? Like, the actual workloads that are deployed in the workload cluster. Is this the right way to think about it? When we deploy Nephew catalog packages, those catalog packages, the management cluster, this config sync is pointing to this particular catalog packages, deploys these resources in the management clusters, but then the porch is the one which is actually hydrating this particular repo. Is this understanding correct?
No.
Okay. What is the
So what
model?
happens? What
How do I
happens
get?
basically is, yeah, I think the reason we use config sync on the management cluster is just to boot up clusters, right? So it's a bit of a special case.
Mhm.
Uh, so for the most part, the config sync on the management cluster is not really used. It is just used to bootstrap a cluster, basically. Okay.
Okay.
But for workloads, if we focus on the workloads, then you should remove your first pull management arrow. So on the left, no, that one, yeah. Yeah, it's gone. So what happens basically is, yeah, everything in the management cluster has ports somehow. So that's going to be the tricky side. But you start from, let's say, a blueprint package, right? Which contains your attestation IDs, right?
Okay.
They could be modified during, there is a possibility to change those attributes on the fly, right?
But
Based on
which
some
is the
context.
which is the component which is actually making those change? Like, in the management cluster, how do I understand that flow? Is there? I see
There's
that there
a,
is. Hmm,
there's a specialization pipeline is doing that.
hmm.
So within a package, right? It's very hard to, yeah. So it's basically that piece, specialization and injectors are doing that. So as part of a package, there is a set of functions that are there when you define a package.
Mhm.
And it's those functions that are, let's say, changing or transforming the package
Okay, okay, okay.
into a deployable thing, right? So it's done in relation to Porch, but the actual thing that executes it is the function that's within the package.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I saw that actually. I mean, that's I saw that demo of or sample demo of that part of the porch in another video. So that part is clear. But the question now is, let's say for example, we have a package for a particular workload which is going to be deployed on a workload cluster. The mutators are going to be executed on this cluster here, and then it then pushes the information to this repo here, and then this is then used by the config sync to actually apply it in the corresponding workload cluster. Is that
Correct.
understanding correct? Okay.
Yes. So in other
Okay.
words, yeah. So the best, I would, to be honest, I think, yeah, your custom resources, I would remove. Wait a minute. So do we need to, so just to be clear, for that workload, are
Hmm.
we saying that that workload cluster, the identity and attestation rules, do
Hmm.
we need to apply them on the management cluster for that
That's
workload?
that's right. So the point is that this
Ah,
for this workload, right? Like we need to do the registration part on the Spire server. So what I was trying to understand
okay,
is during that,
so
yeah, how will that
so in
happen?
that case, your drawing is correct, actually. So in other words, but we don't have that use case yet, but we could make that, I need to think about that. But so in other words, your package content goes on one hand to the workload cluster, on the other hand goes
Correct.
through the management cluster, right?
Right.
There is pieces that go to the workload cluster and there is pieces that go to the management cluster.
Right.
Uh, yeah, the way we did that is with annotations and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I don't recall at the top of my head anymore.
Okay. Because this is
But
one of the most crucial steps, in terms of registration of
yeah, so
workload, if
that's
you're
the
able to automate.
specialty here, right? So the
Yeah.
specialty here is that you want some of these components to be deployed on the management cluster, which are then going to be controlling the Spire server, and then other components are going to go to the workload cluster.
Correct. 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 That's right.
Uh, I mean, we
So,
had something like that, but I don't recall how we solved it because we have the same thing with the clusters somehow. In the clusters, you have some packages that you need to boot. So we split it in two different repos, you see?
mhm, right.
Uh,
Yeah. This is a different repo, right? Like, so my understanding is that for every edge cluster,
we
you have
can do it
a.
with a PV, yeah. So the way to do it is with a PV. So you actually add a PV inside of the workload cluster that has a different destination. Okay, yeah, so that's how we did it. So
Can you
within
say
the
that again?
package, within the
Okay.
package of the workload cluster, so in other words, what you do is your attestation rules, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which are both identity and so on, are actually a separate package
Correct. Yes.
that is then so and there is a PV, and so the destination of those are the management cluster.
Yes.
And so what happens is, so the workload cluster package contains a PV that refers to your identity package, if you will. And you see, it's a bit complicated.
Yeah. No, I'm not able to understand this part. So,
So if you look
yeah.
to the workload cluster, the
Mm-hmm.
high level, it actually contains, so the top level, right,
Mm-hmm.
contains actually PVs, so package variants
Oh,
that
PVs
refer
is
to another
package
package.
variant. Okay. I was thinking about PV. When you said PV, I was thinking persistent volume. Okay. Sorry.
No, package variant. So in other words, you
Okay.
can, so what we
Okay.
did
Okay.
for the workload cluster is we had a hierarchy of packages that
Okay. Right.
contains it. And so
Right.
the way that we distinguished the
Right.
destination from
Mm-hmm.
one to the other was through a PV, so that there was a different PV. But so the way we did it, so you have a top level workload cluster package, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have a blueprint for, let's say, SMF or UPF, right? And then you have identity. So in other words, the way you have to think about it is create a top level workload package, right? That has a
Mm.
pointer to the blueprint of the UPF, right?
Correct.
And also a pointer to your blueprint of identity, okay? And so the way you point to it is through a PV, right? So a PV in the top level package is going to refer to that blueprint, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
those two blueprints. And what will happen is that, so basically the top level package will be hydrated with some common parameters that will create two PVs, one for your identity that goes to the management cluster and the other one for the workload cluster for the actual deployment. Does that make sense?
So yeah, now what you're saying is hydration will handle resources being sent to either management cluster depending upon but how and this when you say hydration, this is essentially the mutators that are coming into play, right? Like that those are the ones who are actually taking that
They can also be zero, right? So just for the sake of it, think of them as being zero. You could also say they are irrelevant, if you will, right? But most likely you will need a name, right? That is unique to the pod.
Yes, put to the workload. Yeah, yes. So
Yeah, to the workload. So in other words, during hydration, so the first step is you say, I allocate a name, right?
correct. Yeah.
And
So what
your
we need.
identity as well as the workload. So in other words, the top level package from which everything starts, that's the one that determines the name, right? And
Correct.
then your identity package will get that name and it will be used for further mutations, right?
Correct.
And then the workload gets the same name and then will also be used for further mutation. But as a result, you have common parameters that are then being used, you see?
Right. Right. So the information that needs to be passed during registration is the attestation attributes. And somehow these attestation attributes, so this by itself is going to be a resource, right? Like resource, Kubernetes
Yeah, that's a CRD, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a CR, yeah. So then the point is this is passed on this link. The question is it somehow has to come from here. So the porch will be doing this during hydration phase here, like
Also,
will
the
be
way
creating.
it's not Porch, it's a specialization pipeline that does it, right? So
Okay,
what you have to do is during your specialization pipeline, so that's what I was saying, there will be parameters that are going to be common, right? Or going to
mhm,
be, I need to be coordinated, let's put it that way,
okay,
right?
right, yeah, okay,
And so that coordination of those parameters happens in the specialization scenario. And then, yeah, Porch just sees the result of it. So we store that.
I see. Okay,
But I wouldn't, yeah, so it's not, you should not draw it. I would not draw it like that.
I see. Okay, yeah, that's the part I need to. I'm not able to
Because
get.
what actually happens, so the way you have to, I would visualize it, Rahul,
Mhm.
is that, see, you have, I, so the way I would draw it somehow.
Hmm. You should be able to annotate my screen if you are aware.
Can I?
Yeah, you should be able to annotate the screen. If you see, there should be an annotation option. This is not my Zoom, so I'm not sure whether Linux Foundation allows.
Otherwise, should I share my screen
Oh,
quickly?
yeah, that would be even better. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Wait a minute. So let me draw another.
Hmm.
Yeah. I cannot share.
You should be able to share. I am
Ah,
not
here.
able. Yeah, you
Wait.
should be able to share. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the way I was thinking about is this, right? So you have a top level package, right?
Mhm.
That creates a PV and another PV, right? And then, or maybe let me create another box.
Mhm.
So you have something like this, right?
Hmm.
And then what you have, this points to another ISO 2 packages, basically. One which has, you could say, identity, right?
Right.
Slash attestation,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
With some, yeah, or maybe I should call them out, right? Identity, spelling, yeah, so maybe there's spelling mistake, but
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
attestation, right? And then you have something that does, wait, sorry. Uh, and then you have something that does the workload itself, right?
Yeah. The workload itself. Yes. Oh, so these are going to be two different packages altogether. Huh?
Yeah, so basically this one points to this guy, right?
Hmm.
And this guy points to this guy, right?
I see. I see. Okay.
Now, what will happen is, so what happens basically is during the hydration, so what will actually happen is basically two-step hydration. So so the way I would draw this is, for you, what you instantiate is basically this, but you actually get three packages that are being instantiated. Wait, this button is in my way. Wait,
Hmm.
now it's gone. Okay. So what will actually happen is, so this, when you do this, the
Hmm.
common parameter between this and this should be reflected, right? So what
Ah,
happens
okay.
basically is, this is your blueprint, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Okay.
way I typically draw it is, but that's my personal view, because the problem is you cannot really address it in components, if you will, right? So this is your beginning, and
Mm-hmm.
that will result in a variant of this
Hmm.
with the parameters filled out, right? So in other words, you
Ah,
have a step from A to B somehow, right? So
okay.
so there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be this,
Mm-hmm.
and then the what is important here is, this picture is not going to be very nice, but okay. So what will happen is that here you get a PV prime, right? And here you get PV prime,
Yeah.
an identity prime,
Yeah.
which is the parameter for this specific instantiation,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the difference, why is this the hierarchy, is that this guy will go to the management cluster and this guy will go to the workload cluster. And so by splitting them up, the destination can be differentiated. If you put them all in one package, I think within a package, everything goes to the same destination. But by splitting them with a PV, you can actually change that stuff.
I see. I see. Wim, one basic question. You said that this particular PV, the below PV, the workload dash PV, right? Like that goes to the management cluster. Having
No, no, no.
it should
So,
it
so
should be going to the workload cluster, right?
correct, yeah. So basically per PV, you can
Okay.
basically
Mm.
create different destinations. Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, okay. And one more question. So let's call this as a base blueprint or something like that. Is there a term that is used for the base
This
blueprint?
is the blueprint. This is
Oh,
the
this is the
blueprint.
blueprint. Okay, and these are the
Yeah.
instantiations. Okay,
And this
uh,
is basically the variants or the real
variants.
instance. Yeah.
I
So
see.
this
I
is
see. I
Yeah,
see.
so that's how we call it. So this is the actual instantiation of the workload.
Okay.
This is actually the blueprint.
So, and the blueprint is actually part of the Nephio catalog packages, right? Like that's where it
Yes.
belongs.
So this
Okay.
will be in catalog, and
Dynamically
this will
created.
be
Hmm.
instantiated through
Right.
port. So you'll see a PV on the management. So all of this will be on the management cluster. So you see a PV for this. You
Right.
see then a resulting PV from this for this and for this. So you see three PVs basically for
Right.
this.
Right. 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 Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah. I mean, this is much more clearer for me. This is very
And
nice.
so, so what will be the result if you then, I want to build a pic, that's why it's a picture for management and workload cluster, right?
Mhm.
With your Spire, then what so the way, and this is your workload, right?
Mhm.
Cluster.
Right.
Then, maybe the drawing is wrong, but this goes here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, the way it goes is, so the way you should draw it is at the moment, so we have let's say a repo
Yes. Yeah.
for A and a repo for B, right? And then,
Right.
so what will happen is that this thing goes here,
Perfect.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this one goes here, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what I was saying is
Got it.
that's how I would draw it because the other that would be my
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
recommendation. But
Yeah.
because it's clear. Otherwise the problem is it's hard to split in components. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. 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 I got
At
it.
this level you can, but what's happening here is very hard to split in components. So
Right.
this happens through ports and specialization, right? So yeah.
Hmm. And the database, these boxes that you have drawn below the
This
cylinders,
is
these are basically Git repos, right? Like essentially.
yeah, this is repo. Yeah, so these are separate repos,
Right.
or can be. At the moment, they are separate repos, but they could also be subdirectories within a repo if you
Oh,
want.
okay, okay, okay.
But for now they are separate repos in the current instantiation. So
Right,
let's think
right.
of them as repos. Yeah.
Got it, got it, got it, got it. And config syncs actually are going to point to these repos in the individual
Yeah, and
clusters.
then config sync. Yeah, so correct. So the way you have to draw it to be complete, right? So and
Mm,
that's so here you have config sync that
mm.
does this side and does that side, and he points to this guy and he points to that guy.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Super. Perfect. Yeah. Now I think this is very
And
clear
then
to
you
me.
have your Spire server, right? Who
Yes.
gets stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Once config syncs is there, then all the resources are locally available, which means everything can be now deployed. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Super. Do you mind, Wim? Is it okay? Let me just take a screenshot of this, if you
No,
don't
I
mind.
can share this
Okay.
drawing, but it's yeah, you probably have to improve a lot.
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah. That part I can I can get it done. But yeah, this is okay. Fantastic. Uh, eh, eh, Prashant, this is the model that we have to work, right? Like this is the where the full automation will come into play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we might want to do one more sync on top of this. By the way, we also have Thiago on call. Thiago, glad to have you on this call. Thiago has been one of the contributors towards Celium Spiffy implementation, so he's one of the expert in that domain as well. So great to have you, Thiago, on this call.
Hello, guys.
Mhm.
Nice to
Hey,
meet you all.
so super. Uh, I guess based on this, we might have some new questions next time. But I think this is a great start. This makes things more clearer for me. We really appreciate you taking the time to actually explain this. I think this could be a nice tutorial for everyone who wants to do this the same stuff, right? Like there's some information available in the user documentation online, but not to
It's
this, the
it's
flow
very
itself.
hard
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
this, but there's so much undercover, right? So with this PV and the hierarchy and stuff
correct.
like that.
Correct. The porch itself is a different topic, right? Like when I actually understood, when I tried to dig deeper, when I understood the porch, a lot of things were clear to me, but still, clearly there was a big gap. The package variant part, it makes things very different. Like that, that understanding I didn't have. And yeah, this is super. So the package variants are actually created through specializers and mutators, right? Like is that understanding correct?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Uh, right. This has been a great call so far. Thank you very much. Anything else? I don't have anything else on my list today. Thank you very much, everyone.
Either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day, good week
Yep.
ahead. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Right.
Thank you, Thiago. Thank you.